What's up, guys? Before I get started today, I wanted to tell you to go check out BasketballBrain.com. The full program takes about 12 minutes a day, and it will dramatically improve your game. If you're just kind of getting started with mental training, or you're just a weekend warrior, or just kind of play basketball for fun, go check out the free shooting program. It's called the Lock Arc Swish Method, and it'll help you no matter what level you're at. Today, I wanted to talk about Isaiah Thomas. And I think we should all, Isaiah Thomas, not the old school player, but the guy for the Boston Celtics, I think we should all just stop for a moment and consider how impressive this guy really is. He's 5'9", and he scores 28 points a game, almost 29. I think it was 28.9 points per game, 6 assists, a few rebounds. He shot 46 or 47% from the field, 38 from 3. And more importantly, he led his team to the best record in the Eastern Conference. LeBron plays in that conference. You know, it's the Eastern Conference, but he still had the best record. He had a better record than LeBron's Cavs, which are stacked for the Eastern Conference. I'll never understand why LeBron doesn't have a 70-win season. He really should have one. He should have, being in that conference, he should challenge that 73 wins that the Warriors had. He really should, but that's another story. Either way, let's think about what Isaiah Thomas has done. He's just an amazing person. And we all know that in the playoffs this year, he got the worst news you can possibly have. A family member of his sister, was killed in a traffic accident. And yet, he came out and he still played. And he didn't just play. He played at a high level. It was miraculous. I mean, it honestly brought tears to my eyes as I was watching it. And I'm not a big Boston fan, but you gotta respect that. He just eats, sleeps, and breathes basketball. That's what he is. It's what he does. I remember Conor McGregor saying in a tweet, I think it was a tweet, that fighting was easy for him because all he thought about was fighting. Now, I'm not saying he didn't think about his sister. That's not what I'm saying, but the great thing about basketball, and I know you guys know it, even you guys who don't play seriously, you get a ball and you go to a court when you're going through tough times, and it's like your therapist. I know Michael Jordan said that after his father died. He went and played baseball, but he came back to basketball, and I think it was in Come Fly With Me, I think, in one of his videos, back when they used to come on VHS tapes. I mean, I ran mine to like threadbare. It barely worked anymore, but he said it was my therapist. Basketball was my psychologist. It's what I need. I know every time something's happened in my life, you know, whether I go through a breakup, the first thing I do, you know, or a bad business deal, is I go to a basketball court. And I hopefully it's empty, because there's something about just shooting and shooting and shooting and being alone. Using your body to kind of get out of your thoughts and get out of your mind. In psychology, when you go through something like Isaiah Thomas went through and you bounce back, it's called resiliency. The official definition is the capacity to quickly recover from difficult situations. Toughness would be another word. A secondary definition is the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. Elasticity. So you know certain things you can bend, but they just don't break. You hear about resiliency with kids that are often raised in the inner city, who've had a really tough upbringing, bad parents, bad schools, etc., and yet still turn out to be the model citizen and greatly successful. They have resiliency. What are the components of resiliency? Well, first, it's the ability to accept the bad that has happened. There's no denying it. In other words, Isaiah Thomas didn't repress it. You know, he acknowledged that it had happened, and you saw him crying on the bench at one point, and Charles Barkley said, I didn't think he should be out there playing. And I get Charles' sentiment. You know, it makes sense. But resilient people, a second component is they have the ability to focus on the future and what is good in life. You know, whenever you hear someone climbing, they always say, don't look down. And what they mean by that, what they really should say is make sure you just look up to where you're going, your next handhold. Look up to the top, towards the summit, where you're headed. And that's great advice for life, especially when something dramatic happens. Okay, so Isaiah Thomas had a mission at hand. And this is also why it's important to have something in your life that gives you meaning. Because when you have something in your life that gives you meaning, when a tragedy happens, you have that thing to go into. So someone who's resilient can look at the future and focus on that future and then work hard to achieve those goals. They can throw oneself into one's work. And why is it important, again, to throw yourself into your work after you've been through something that's very difficult and strenuous on your emotions and your mind? It's because it helps you to stop ruminating. It gets you out of your mind. In a good way, not like you're losing your mind, but out of your mind and into your body and into the present moment. Right now, in this present moment, there's nothing wrong. You have no problems. If you don't think, if you can't think, if you're just playing basketball, for instance, there can't be anything wrong in the present moment. In this very moment, there's nothing wrong. Everything's perfect. Because you're in that space between worrying about the past and thinking about the future. You're right there. So they have an idea of where they want to go. And what's exciting about that is once you clock, okay, that's my destination, you can throw yourself back into your activity. Have you ever noticed in the wild, maybe you've seen it on the Discovery Channel, an animal gets into a crazy life or death struggle, right? They're like running for their lives from a cheetah, and it jukes and it dives and it, dust is flying everywhere, and finally it somehow escapes. And 5 minutes later, what's it doing? It's not running over to the other, antelope or whatever it is, or gazelles, and saying, oh my God, can you believe that just happened? And its heart's beating. No, it's getting some water and eating some grass. Right back into their life. Right back into what they're doing. And Isaiah Thomas did just that. But again, he was also dealing with it. He accepted it. And this is the fourth component. People who are resilient don't have too much pride to ask for help. And they don't ask for help from people who can't help. They get help from people who can help them. And that's a difference. Don't lean on someone who doesn't have the tools or the skills or hasn't been through it. Or don't lean on somebody who's been through it and hasn't come out of it. You want to find somebody who's been through what you've been through and can really tell you what they did. We always talk about modeling at Basketball Brain. When you hit tragedy, you want to find those people that have been through a similar tragedy and not been cowed by it, not been broken by it, but came out the other side and feel okay and feel normal again. And Isaiah definitely got that help. And of course you can lean on your friends and family too, but you also want to have somebody who really has experience in it to help you out. So they form a strong network, and if they don't have one, they go out and create it. And one thinks of someone like Oprah Winfrey in this scenario. Oprah, if you don't know, had a really tough childhood. But through that, she built this vast network of people who love and adore her. So this is the core of resilient people, and anybody can do it. You can do it. I just was reading today, and what brought Isaiah Thomas to mind was an article that I think it was he was hanging out with his girlfriend or whoever it was. She posted a picture saying, I'm trying to watch a movie with this guy, and it's 12:22 a.m. or something, and he's just studying game tape. So he's thrown himself into his passion, and he's thrown himself into his vision for the future. And it's just awesome, man. Like sometimes, these guys seem so out of our league because they're in the NBA, they're in a different basketball universe, but a lot of what they do applies to our lives. They're no more important than you are. They're just on TV doing their job, and they get a little bit more fan adoration, but you in your life and whatever you do, you're your own hero. And you can throw yourself into whatever it is you do the same way he throws himself into what he does. And for most of you right now, it's basketball, so you should be throwing it into basketball. But when you're done, or whatever else you do in your life, all these skills you learn, everything that you get from playing this beautiful game will translate. It's translated for me and everybody I know into whatever else you do. Hard work, fundamentals, obsession with getting better, sacrifice some of the pleasures of life for the true enduring joy of building something out of your life. Isaiah's a great person, a great man, and you don't say that about a whole lot of people. You really don't, because a lot of people don't get a chance to prove it. Thankfully, not many people have to go through that sort of tragedy. But when somebody does go through something like that and doesn't break, but steps their game up even higher, we should all stop and just, from a human perspective, take inspiration from that, because who knows what happens tomorrow? Nothing is promised. And I know if something happens to me, I'm going to use Isaiah Thomas as somebody I look to and model and how he handled that. This is BasketballBrain.com. Visit BasketballBrain if you really want to get ahead mentally in the game.